In the beginning, there was only God. From his infinite light, he created the angels, pure and radiant beings. The most glorious of them all was Lucifer, the morning star. His wings were vast and dazzling, his beauty unmatched. He was the Lightbringer, the most beloved of God's children. Lucifer was God's right hand, his most trusted lieutenant. He commanded legions of angels, his voice resonating with power and grace. He was a being of pure light, his very essence radiating love and wisdom. The other angels looked up to him with awe and admiration, basking in his radiant presence. But even in the heart of perfection, a seed of discontent began to sprout. Lucifer, in his boundless pride, started to question God's absolute authority. Was it not he, Lucifer, who is the most magnificent of all God's creations? Lucifer, accustomed to praise and adoration, began to crave more. He, who had always stood by God's side, started to perceive the Almighty's power as a limitation on his own potential. Whispers of discontent began to stir within him, subtle at first, like the rustling of wings in the stillness of heaven. His doubts grew with each passing eon. Why should he, the most radiant and powerful of angels, bow to anyone, even God? Was he not capable of shaping his own destiny, of creating a world even more magnificent than heaven? He confided in his closest companions, angels who admired and envied him in equal measure. They listened, enthralled by his words, their own hearts swayed by his burgeoning ambition. The seeds of rebellion, once sown, began to take root in the fertile ground of their pride. The more Lucifer dwelled on his doubts, the more his heart hardened. He convinced himself that God's rule was an obstacle, a barrier preventing him from achieving his true potential. He envisioned a new order, a universe where he, not God, would reign supreme. His whispers of dissent grew louder, attracting angels who craved power and change. They saw in Lucifer a champion, a leader who would challenge the established order and elevate them to new heights of glory. His vision, seductive in its promise of freedom and power, resonated with their own desires. The whispers turned into pronouncements, his doubts hardening into a steeled resolve. Lucifer, once the Lightbringer, had embraced the seductive allure of power, his heart now consumed by the flames of rebellion. Finally, Lucifer decided to challenge God's authority openly. He rallied his followers, a third of the angels in heaven, promising them freedom and dominion over their own destinies. His voice, once filled with hymns of praise, now boomed with pronouncements of rebellion, shaking the very foundations of heaven. "We are not meant to be subservient," he declared, his voice echoing through the celestial plains. "We are angels, beings of immense power. We deserve the right to shape our own fate, to create a world free from God's constraints." His words resonated with his followers, their hearts aflame with a desire for something more. They had long chafed under what they perceived as God's restrictive rule, yearning for a power that seemed forever out of reach. Now, Lucifer offered them a chance to seize that power, to become masters of their own destinies.